Hey, what's going on, everybody? How are y'all today?
What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up?
Hey, this is the Chocolate Chat family. We are here today to advocate mental health, wellness, and healing. We're a safe space to uplift each other and the community. I have my beautiful and handsome friends with me today, joining us on part 2. Discussing domestic violence in our youth. Today, I'm going to move away from the youth as much. I just want to continue to discuss women in general and men today, because women are not the only ones who get abused. Isn't that right? I do want to talk today about like a couple instances that I've seen regarding young men being abused. Mostly it was men in their 20s and younger that I have seen be abused by their partners. And that's a whole nother topic. So anyway, I want to go through and say hi to everybody. I got my homegirl Mimi on the line. What's going on, Miss Mimi?
Hey, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing good.
How's everybody doing?
Everybody's doing okay. Getting over our colds and everything else, all the other cooties we had at this whole household. We disinfect the hell, as you excuse me, Kalina, out this house. I bleach everything but their skin. You hear me? And we also have my friend, my bestie, Mr. Steven Namani in the house. What's going on, Mr. Namani? Wane. You know here we go with me being the fake Nigerian, you the authentic. You the real. And last but not least, our guest that has come and joined us. We had such a good time last week. My friend, Miss Kalina Huggins of the Rebirth of You. What's going on?
Hi, everybody.
What's up?
Happy Monday. Happy Monday.
Our show will air on Wednesday. We do air a little bit ahead of time just to give me a little time to get it together. But Miss Kalina, how was your week? Anything interesting this week that we should know about?
I'm getting booked and busy. I'm keeping myself busy. I'm advocating.
That's good. What I always say, promote yourself. You go out
there.
I'm
promoting myself.
That's right. You go out there and you tell them your services and your goods and tell them why they'd be blessed to have you. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Now, once again, Kalina, remind us just once again what it is exactly that you got going on in your city.
I have the Rebirth of You. It's a domestic violence support group, also a women empowerment group. I cater to women that have suffered from domestic violence, definitely cater to survivors, but I also cater to women that's experiencing other traumas, because there are people I can reach out to that have dealt with other traumas to connect them to services.
Okay. When you say other type of trauma, what other services are you talking about?
Sexual trauma, childhood trauma, mental health illness. I have one of my moderators is an infertility advocate, so I have a lot of people in my group that have dealt with a lot of things, and they are sorry about that. I don't know why that happened. But I definitely cater to every woman, because we all, as a women, we all go through something.
That's so true.
So I have a question.
Shoot it.
So I understand that you deal with victims at the moment, but do you have plans on dealing with or actually finding help for the person that's actually distributing the pain? Because so what if it's the female that is the abusive one, but she wants to get help? Like, is there space for that? Is there space for her?
Yes, as we grow, that is my plan to add men to the group. I'm only reluctant because some men go to these Facebook support groups and look for them to be the hookup spot, and that's not what my group.
No, not men, women that are the abusers.
Yes, but I don't have men in my group to answer your question. Yeah, I know they are women abusers. For example, everybody, I always bring this up. I talk about domestic violence and in the media a lot, because I feel like the media kind of perpetrates how some of us act. And I always go back to the Chris Brown and Rihanna situation. Everybody was like, oh, he did her so wrong. I said, but what did she do to make him act like that? Chris Brown was a sweetheart to me. So when she did that to him, I feel like she initiated, she was the abuser, and he was just doing what he had to do to defend himself.
So my question is, do you have a program out there for the abuser? Maybe they know they have a problem and they want to get help.
I haven't got that far yet. I'm getting there. My group is fairly fresh and new. So right now I focus on the survivors and the victims right now. I'm not quite in my healing process yet, or have a big enough team where I can focus on abusers. Because my business, at this moment, I'm telling it to the people I actually know that's survivors, like Meka, or people that we have actual victims that, they disclose things in my group. Right now, no, I'm not quite yet ready to help the abuser, but that is on my list of things to do as we expand.
I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, being that you said you're still in your healing process, and I know we're talking about the abuser in this session, as a person who's been abused as well, do you find that it's hard to focus on the abuser because you're still in the healing process? Like, do you think that if you weren't a victim of abuse, that you would be more,
I think so. Yes. To answer your question, yes. Because in order for me to completely help, I've forgiven my abuser, but sometimes when you have to talk to an abuser, some people, it's still a trigger for them. Healing is a daily journey. It's not something you wake up one day, I'm completely healed. No. You'll forever be healing from domestic violence or whatever trauma you experience.
Speaking of that, remember last week I cried. And I had to think about this happened 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And I'm still just as sensitive about it today as I was when it first happened. That was crazy to me. I did not expect to get so upset just talking about stuff that happened to me in my past. I think I got upset with myself while I'm telling that story. Like, gosh, why did you allow that? And it wasn't me allowing it, but in your mind, you're saying, why did you have to go through that particular thing? Why is this part of your life, your story, your narrative is like, what happened to you and why did it happen twice? Right. Those are the questions you ask yourself as being the abused. Like, what did I do to deserve that type of treatment? And, those a lot of things go through your mind as the person who was abused. And Steve, I was thinking about you when we were off air. You were asking me if one day we could talk to someone who actually abused women and get their perspective. And I had to think hard because my first instinct is absolutely not who cares what they think, but on the other hand, you do kind of wonder what is their thought process? Right. Why do they think that this is something that they had to do to a woman? What do they recommend for their healing to stop abusing women? How can we stop that cycle on that end? But I feel like I'm not ready to be the one to do that interview. I don't want to talk to them. I don't care to hear what they have to say at this point. When I get to that point in my healing, and maybe I could listen to you one day. If you actually found someone one-on-one with a man, maybe they'd be more comfortable with you and me not being there to be biased. That probably would be something that you separately maybe, or with just not having a lot of input so that we could possibly hear from a man and say, I was in this frame of mind when I was doing A, B, and C. But at this point in my life, even 12 years later, it's hard for me to have empathy or sympathy for someone who thinks it's okay to put their hands on women repeatedly, not just once,
I agree,
but several relationships.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. I agree with that. But also, I truly believe that women don't. Okay, I heard this saying, and that I really agree with it. That women are like a tea bag. They're like a tea bag. You never know how strong they are until you put them in hot water.
Ooh.
I was like, yo, that's so fire. Yeah. So you may think that you're not ready, because you're thinking about your emotions. But once the conversation starts, believe me, you might even start taking your anger out on him, and he had nothing to do with it. But that's a part of the show. This show is about being real. This is supposed to be a space where we can be honest and be open about our how we feel about things. And we're going to have guests that we're not going to agree with. Every show is not going to be us smiling and stuff like that. So, and one thing I found out recently is that a lot of abusers are narcissistic.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found out that the foundation of narcissism actually comes from your parents. It comes from your parents not allowing their children to express their feelings. It's that parent that's always telling them, stop crying, don't act like this, and all these things. And so the narcissists, what they do is from that point on, only their feelings is important. Only what they think is important. Only how they feel is important. Because they were never able to share it. They were never able to express it.
I think that's partly true.
It's partly true.
Parents were raised to do that to their kids. I don't think all abusers were either around that environment or,
No, not the abusing part. I mean the narcissistic, the narcissistic mentality.
And the thought.
Right. Yeah.
I 50% agree with that because I've came across a few narcissists. Their head is so big because their parents made their head so big. Have you ever, the spoiled brat mentality? Or I know some people put their kids on a pedestal, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But when they grow up to think they bodacious and they're arrogant, those are a lot of men that are abusers. They're bodacious, they're arrogant, and I'm with Meka on that. I don't know if I can sit through that interview because what if you get a man on here that's bodacious and arrogant? Like, yeah, I had a woman, and so what? There's some men that don't feel no remorse for doing that.
Right now.
I mean,
and when they're truly a true narcissists don't care about nobody but themselves.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's different type of narcissists. Like they're narcissists that'll do it and be like, you know what, I'm sorry. But then there's a narcissist that got this big head. Like, okay, I'm the man. Yep, I did it. And they think they get cool points from their friends because they do it. And that's some narcissists' problem. They need validation from other people. Especially abusers. When your friends think it's cute for you to hit up, that's validation.
Right.
A real man don't need no validation.
Do you think that's the case? I think you might get a group of friends, let's say maybe 4 or 5 friends that are really tight, and one of them thinks it's all right to choke slap hit a woman. And a lot of their friends will say, a lot of men say that's not cool, or they'll
or some of them don't say nothing.
They'll turn the other cheek. Yeah, they'll turn the other cheek.
Even silence is not healthy.
Absolutely.
That's true.
So what can you do though? As a friend, if I'm a dude and I have a homeboy who's choking their girlfriend or whatever, and I say something, you're ending the friendship possibly, or they're ignoring you, and they're still doing it, right? So what am I doing at that point? How am I supposed to prevent them from having this behavior? What can I do? Can I recommend you talk to somebody or something? They be like, yeah, man, I ain't gonna hang with this dude. He a square. He just don't agree with what I'm doing. He gonna continue to do whatever he wants to do anyway.
Right. And a lot of people don't get involved. Going back to why people don't get their family involved. I know when I was going through my stuff, my best friend, she knew about it, but I didn't want to totally involve a whole bunch of people because people, for one, as I say, the police get this mentality in our community, you gonna go back. So that's why some friends don't say anything because they don't want to, feel like they overstepping their boundaries and mess up that friendship. Because if it's a friendship of over a decade or 4 or 5 years, you're not gonna want to mess up no friendship over no dude or no female.
And that's true. And that goes back to the example I gave last week as well about me having a family member and me coming in trying to protect her. I ended up having jail time. By the time I came back home, they were back together. So you probably do have friends out there that speak up, but there is a fine line between being a friend and minding your own business, especially between men. You know what I mean? Like that's not my place to talk to you about your wife or your girlfriend. Now, if I see that this woman is in distress and she's really seeking help and a way out, then she's my sister. So that might be your girlfriend, but especially if she's a black woman, she's my sister. You know what I'm saying? So we're gonna have to have a very serious conversation. You know what I mean? And then, but you also you have to include God some kind of way. Like even if you don't know what to do, that's when you go to God in prayer. You know what I mean? You definitely go to God in prayer with something like that. So
well,
yeah.
And that's what makes it so bad too, Steve, because people tend to stray away from church. Meka, I think we talked about this on my live before. People, I go to God for everything. But people feel like when they're going through domestic violence, and I guess me being raised in the church, that's like, especially when a person is married. When you grow up in the church, marriage is honorable, XYZ, through sickness and health, till death do us part. So a lot of people feel like when they experience domestic violence, especially when they're married, that when they go to church, the answer they're going to get, it's going to be okay, baby. Y'all got to work this out. You got to stay together. Stay together. You know what the Bible says. And I feel like that stigma has to stop, because sometimes it can be the pastor abusing his wife.
Right.
Yes, that's true. That's true. And so when it comes...
Steve, before you go on, I know Marie was trying to say something. What were you going to say, Marie? Do you remember?
To his, to piggyback off what he said about turning, not getting involved. I think the problem with that, I understand that perspective, but the problem with not just people being abused, but just anything, is that a lot of people turn the other cheek way too often. And, that goes from abuse all the way to, kids in foster care, cheating, just a whole list of things. And I feel like, when it comes to somebody's life possibly being over, just like that, how could you not how could you not do anything? How could you just not get involved? You know what I'm saying? It's just, it happens so quick. And 1 minute she can be here and the next minute she could be gone, just because somebody chose, to turn a blind eye. And to me, I disagree with that, because like I said, my abuser beat me up in the whole neighborhood. I was pregnant. Nobody came to help me. Nobody, not him, not one person. And he could have killed me. And nobody even thought to do anything to help me and my baby. And that's terrible. All because nobody wanted to get involved.
We have that.
To me, that's a bad attitude to have.
We have that in our culture, period. Mind your business. Don't say.
Yeah, it's not like back in the days where
no matter what it is,
I'm gonna get involved, even if I have to do it silently. I'm gonna get
the police,
involved.
honey.
Right.
It could be anonymous. It could be, I'm gonna call them, and
Right.
I'm gonna. And me mentally, I'm not all there, so I'm gonna be like, "What, son? What you doing, son? What we doing? You're not about to do this." I'm gonna walk up on. You might be bigger than me, but there's no way I'm gonna stand there and allow you to hit on a woman in front of my face. That's not happening.
Right.
We both gonna get beat up then, because guess what? I will never allow anybody. I don't care if you're a person on the street that I don't know. I'm pulling over to act like I'm gonna pull up on you, at least even to stay in safety distance. Pull close to you and say, hey, I'm about to call the police or something. Do something.
Right. Something.
I mean, and like you said, they may be with them again next week. That's their business. But can you live?
You did your just.
Yeah, can you live with yourself after somebody on the news that you just watched get dragged down the street and beat up, or pushed off a bridge, or beat up, or pushed down some stairs, and you saw that and you didn't say anything, and you got to live with that for the rest of your life?
It's the suffering in silence. That's the thing. Us as a community, Black women, we suffer in silence so much. Because I was talking to my mom the other day, and I said, it's not like stuff was back in the day where it took a village and, your neighborhood was your family. It's not like it was back in the day. Because you did have people back in the day that intervened, like the older guy from down the street be like, hey, son, you don't need to be doing that to her. Go on and walk off down the street. Yeah. Now you don't know if you want to say something to somebody. They might shoot you or want to fight you because you're getting involved. Absolutely. But I do agree with Meka. Like, I've been driving and seen a woman literally getting her face bashed in. I literally have pulled over and be like, either you gonna stop hitting her, or I'm gonna call the police. I said, I'm gonna sit here and wait till they get here, so you don't lie. Because I told her it's no need for you to lie about him hitting you, because the bruises are gonna show. Right. And my thing is, especially when kids are involved, I get I lose my mind, because I'm like, who could do this in front of a kid? But abusers, they don't care. They don't care if a kid around, your mama around. They will try to beat you if they don't care.
Kalina, I'm gonna get to you, Steve, quickly. But Do you know my daughter and I, my 18-year-old, were discussing a family member that deliberately did it in front of her kids. And he would slap her and say, so, and what you gonna do, little boy? Knowing that this little boy is 14, 15 years old, to intimidate him. Go tell so-and-so if you want to. Go
Yeah,
tell
that's an intimidate. That's the mental abuse.
What is that? Why would you hit a helpless or threaten a helpless child?
It's like they want a reason to
well,
some
abusers, yeah,
make you feel like a bigger dude because you can punk a child. You're a punk. How about
and
that?
That's where childhood trauma comes into play. With a lot of children that have seen abuse, that's their trauma. Mm-hmm. They're watching their mom, and there are men that say, "Call your uncle, call your granddaddy, call whoever." I ain't scared of nobody.
And be gone when they get there, though. How about that? A lot of the time,
when they get there, but you have scared
is that men that hit women won't fight a dude. No, but they'll bust a chick in the face quick. When the dudes come and step to them, they be like, man, you know, no problem. I ain't even like that. My bad, son. Then soon as they leave, then, you gonna call your peoples on me, that kind of thing. But when it comes to you actually being a man and standing up and putting them hands up to a dude, they won't do it. You want to take your masculinity, the little bit you have, and try to put it on a woman and make yourself feel empowered. And now there's something twisted about that. You know what I mean?
Yes, I experienced that, witnessing that a couple weeks ago, right in front of my house, where this girl was running down the street and she was yelling for me to call the police. And I seen the guy just walking. She running and he walking like Jason and Friday the 13th. Still caught her walking. Like, how you caught her? You was walking. And so, you know, I called 911. He saw me call 911. He's like, yo, bro, mind your business. And I was talking to 911, and so he had snatched her by her hair and just like flung her in the street.
Oh.
And I'm talking to 911, I'm telling them to come on. And they are asking me all these questions.
They asked so many questions.
Had nothing to do with it. I think she asked me how many teeth I had. I'm like, what does that have to do with this girl getting beat? And so she got stopped. He slammed her on her head, all that, you know what I mean? And I got so pissed off on the phone with 911. I just started cursing her out. Like, you ask me all these questions. I don't hear no sirens in the air. I don't hear no sirens. But you know what?
That's the thing too.
Like 2 weeks later, though. Yeah, 2 weeks. Exactly. She dead. I'm like, about time y'all get here, the girl gonna be dead. You know, and I was pissed. Like, that messed my whole night up. You know, just 911's. It was like all over again, listening to Public Enemy all over again.
911.
Well, I can't believe this. And so, but then like 2 weeks later, a couple weeks later, I see them at the store together, buying chips, getting them a day's soda. And I said, yo, you know.
And this could be because she's scared to leave. I mean, it be so many reasons.
That goes back to that trauma bond.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's that love bond. That's that you broke me, but you're the only one that could fix me.
Well, that's not always the case, but it's true. Like, some women stay for financial reasons. If the man was the breadwinner and that's the person providing them monetary things, that's their reason for staying. I know a lot of women that have been married, and you know, there's men that say, when you marry me, you can stop working, do X, Y, and Z. That's a lot of reason women stay. A lot of times women stay for kids. Crazy as it sounds,
that's true.
People stay for their kids. So but more so, like you said, it's a trauma bond, because every time a person says sorry, you feel like, okay, you really sorry. Nah, them sorries don't mean nothing when it keep happening again and again and again and again.
It's an addictive cycle.
I had a neighbor. This is like right when my domestic violence really started. I think it almost was like it was some bad mojo in the air or something. My neighbor next door to me at the time was getting abused. I remember I had just brought my daughter home. She had to be about 6 weeks to a month. This is my first episode of getting abused. We used to listen to them over there like fighting. Like, you know how you can hear somebody tussling?
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh, dog, it's me. I said, oh, I couldn't live like that. I said, and she had kids, little kids. I was like, oh, I couldn't live like that, you know, tussling all day, all night over my kids. And I remember the whole time I was pregnant, I would say the same thing until it was me. Until it was me. And then when they would argue, because my neighbor, her kid's father and my daughter's father, they became close. They started going out drinking, partying together. So it was like, okay.
See how they do? That's terrible.
So two abusers together, it used to get really bad. I can remember this one instance where I was like, it's either him or me. Cause I'm like, I'm not gonna fight in front of my kids tonight. I said, but I am gonna get him up out of my house. I literally was pushing and shoving him out my house, like trying to pour bleach on him. Like, I don't want you here. You're drunk, you're acting stupid. This I'll never forget, this older lady, she stayed next door to both, because it was fighting going on both sides. My kids is asleep. So the lady called the police, and she called my mom because she had my mom's phone number. So my mom pull up. Y'all know I'm like, oh my God. Like, I ain't call her. My mom was in the officer about, like Steve said, they asked you so many questions on the phone. So this lady had all this time to listen to all this arguing, what's going on, see where the kids were. Officer finally got there. He was like, well, what's going on? I heard this fighting going on in both houses. I was like, it was. He was like, well, who are the leases name in? You know, me and my neighbor, the leases were in our name. He was like, well, do you want him to stay? I said, well, mine can't stay at my house. This ain't about to happen. My neighbor allowed her kid's father to stay. And allowed my baby daddy to go next door. So it was like, oh my God. So I was up all night on pins and needles. But the officers, and that's why I say I really advocate so hard. And I'm hoping my voice get heard soon so I can talk to somebody here in our city in law enforcement. Like the police, the first thing they come out with black people and they say, oh,
mute.
They was like, well, if y'all don't stop fighting, I'm gonna take your kids. So for me, that was one of my wake-up calls. Was the kids. The way the officers, and Steve is right, the way the officers come out, they take too long, first of all. But the way they come out, as I said last week, and they approach black women, that's why so many women stay. Because they'll tell you, oh, I'm gonna call CPS. My mom was like, no, thank God I got a active mother. She was like, no, mine ain't going down for the foster care. She was like, I'm gonna take mine. She was like, I hate to say it, but y'all two can kill each other and your neighbors can kill each other, but y'all. She was like, no. So a lot of times, a lot of women go back or they stay because the response they're getting for the police officers, I hate to say it, it's not our own police officers of our skin color. It's the white police officers. They come out with this state of mind like, okay, they gonna stay together. Like they already got the mindset, this is a wasted call. And the operators, I feel like they program that way too.
Oh, that's a different subject altogether too. Now, can y'all believe we only have 6 minutes left? This was crazy how time flies.
So I actually want to ask Mimi
6 minutes
because Miss Smith. I noticed. I remember last week when you were talking about moving forward, and so you do have to get to a point in your life where you want to be happy. So, Mimi, I want to ask you, when you got to that fed up point and you knew that this isn't happy, I'm not happy, and you had time to be by yourself and get yourself together. How did you come up to define happiness for yourself? How do you know what happiness looked like for you, and how did you implement it?
Honestly, look, I'm just now finding my happiness these days, and here we are, 17 years later after marrying.
Wow.
So, it took a lot of personal growth, and being honest with myself first and foremost. Is when I feel like I finally found happiness, when I was able to move on from that situation. So it's really just a matter of soul searching, and that's what I did. I'm still doing the work, to be honest. So that's very important.
So you tell the ladies out there not to get discouraged, because it is.
Exactly.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Meka.
I wanted to discuss real quick. I thank you for that question, Steve, because Kalina was saying last week we were talking about dating and moving on, getting over that PTSD, and how it takes so much time to heal from those relationships that you had that trauma in. Like I said, 12 years, 17 years, whether it be whatever the case may be, still affects you today, and how you trust or have lack of trust. I want to talk about real quickly forgiveness. Who do you forgive? Are you forgiving your abuser? Are you forgiving yourself for allowing yourself to go through these things? Are you forgiving yourself enough to allow yourself to be in another relationship and actually be happy?
I can answer that one. I'm currently single, but you gotta forgive yourself. You know, I preach this and I speak this. Give yourself grace and mercy. The same grace and mercy God gives you every day when you wake up. Give yourself that same grace for putting yourself in a situation unbeknown to you that it was gonna happen. In time, as you're healing, as Mimi said, you will forgive your abuser, but you won't forget. You can forgive a person and never have to talk to them again. And sometimes you're not gonna always get that closure from that person with the forgiveness, because I still haven't gotten it. But I also have to be happy and move on with my life.
Absolutely. You deserve that.
So within that 17 years, Mimi, when did you turn from victim to survivor? How did you know that transition had been made?
Honestly, I never looked at myself as a victim. I never want to be considered a victim, although I went through that because I wanted to grow from it. So I couldn't constantly look at myself as a victim. I had to look at myself, as something more than that.
Victorious person.
Right. Exactly.
Yes.
So
I was gonna say that. Yeah. You gotta. She's right. You can't. If you stay in the victim mindset, that's gonna set in the depression and the anxiety, all those different things. So you can't stay in a victim state. You have after you are out of the situation, you strive every day to be a survivor.
Well, I thank you guys so much for joining me again for part 2. This was so enlightening. I want to say out there to all the people who have been through this, even the young girls, seek help. Like I said, go get somebody that may not be your family member. Get somebody who might be neutral and just talk to a therapist about it. Maybe you need to discuss your own mental health so that you can know that you don't deserve this and it's not you. And
you got some places for them, right? You got some places, don't you, that you can tell them about?
Oh, I was saying that there were a couple. Last week we talked about the YWCA here in Rochester. And Miss Kalina, could you give them your information again real quickly?
Yep.
Here we go.
The Rebirth of You 2020 at gmail.com. I also can be found on Facebook or Instagram under The Rebirth of You.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
So we don't have to be in Southern. I just want to ask. So these women don't have to be in your city to actually get help from your foundation.
No, a lot of to be honest, Meka is one of my biggest. Rochester. I have people in South Carolina, in California, Africa. As I see, as a person, there's rules to get in my group. So if you meet those criteria, whether you're a victim or survivor, I add you to the group, and the group is what you make it. Meka interacts. A lot of people, it's got to be what you make it. And I don't know about Meka, but it's helped me in my own personal healing process.
Well, I don't want to cut you guys off. I just want to say thanks again for coming. My last words today is I am having a positive and inspiring impact on the people I come into contact with. This is why I'm here. This is why you're here. We love you so much at the Chocolate Chat with Meka. Grab your tea. Come chat with me, the Chocolate Chat with Meka. Thanks for joining us today.